The Mountain Maine trended negative rail last week, and that's been a pattern. So remember to upgrade and downgrade horses appropriately given what portion of the track they occupied. That's not going to matter a lot tonight, though, with just 3 dirt races on tap and only 13 total furlongs worth of main track action, because one of that trio is a 2-furlong affair. Yes, indeed, you turf lovers, your 11-day nightmare is over. Back on the grass in a big way tonight at the place the action peaks. 5, count them, 5 turf races. The first 5 events tonight are carded on the grass in Crimea River. If you've been jonesing for turf action, because I can remember back when the joint was Waterford, and we went like 5 years, 6 years or something like that on hiatus when the turf was considered unfit to race on. So I always divide turf in my mind at Waterford/Mountaineer into like AD and BC. That may be sacrilegious to say, but I do. And it's just been a different game ever since it was reinstituted, because when it was Waterford, the place wasn't mainstream. It was so self-contained. You had the same like half a dozen turf horses that won limited number of grass races carded every single year. In fact, there was a horse named Prairie R, who I think won the very first grass race carded of the season, like 7, 8 years in a row. And I kid you not. And back then, turf records, and this is unbelievable, weren't even included in TRF, in the racing form, which was called the Morning Telegraph back then. Remember the big newspaper sheet things? And folks would forget or didn't know the holiday crowd, because it was usually Memorial Day when the first turf of the season was carded. And the holiday crowd would have no idea who Prairie R was, or even that he was a turf horse. So he would pay these outlandish prices, and all the insiders knew that he was going to win. And I can remember those names: The Great Fondness, Champ Ho, Sheila Rambler, Artist, Parkside, Guildhall, the famous Guildhall. That was a different era. Anyways, 5 turf races coming your way tonight on a grass course that is firm. We haven't had rain in a couple of days. The Mountain Maine is fast, but only 3 races to be contested on that Mountain Maine. Welcome in. I am Mark Patterson, and you are in the dungeon, a place I've become rather fond of, and invite you to feel the same about it. A place in which we will share our deepest, darkest, most sinister thoughts and aspirations, and maybe handicap some races too. I am a front runner. That's why I have the Pirates hat on, because they won a big one this afternoon to salvage something from a crucial series against the Cubbies. 8-7 with their bullpen. No lead is safe. They go up 7-1 when O'Hearn hits a grand slam. And I know it's not out of reach with a 7-1 lead. The Pirate bullpen can and does squander that kind of a cushion. And it got real exciting, nail-biting, right down at the very end. But anyway, so my bet lives for the Pirates. I'm not even thinking playoffs at this point for the last round, for the last wild card slot, which a lot of Bucco fans are. I just want to cash my ticket for now. And I did wager on them, as you regular viewers are aware, to win 79 or more games this year. So they're back to 2 over 500. And with my luck, that's going to come right down to the wire, which is one reason I make the bet, because it's like a 6-month-long horse race. You know what I mean? Thanks for getting with me, guys. I can see some familiar names in the comments. So we're going to get through some of these grass races. So let's begin right now. Yeah, when they win, I don the Pirates hat. I'm a front runner in the game of life, too. When things go my way, oh, baby, I'm hard to beat at anything. Give me a little adversity, though. Hook me on the lead, and I'm apt to fold. Even with these races remaining on turf, some inexplicable scratches. We'll get to that a little bit later, though. First one, 7.5, never 3. This is an allowance. And this is the best of our turf affairs tonight. And it's a good field with some well-accomplished grassers. Royal Salute, the 4-horse, is a 2-time winner. Both of his wins have been on the turf. And one of those wins was right here at Royal Salute. And that was an allowance race, going a little bit longer than this. It was a mile, and Oliveros was up. And you might notice how Oliveros rode this horse with a lot of patience. Royal Salute's tendency when he was a Gulfstream Park campaigner was sometimes to go out and vie for the lead, which did him no good whatsoever. Left the tank empty. Wasn't really how he wanted to run. And Oliveros proved it there on June the 9th when he reserved this horse a full 6.5 lengths back and gets up rather gamely there with a stiff finish from out in the middle of the racetrack. Royal Salute comes back and runs second to a good grass horse who's very tough when he gets a loose lead, like he did there. Bosley raced unchallenged on top when Royal Salute's flying at him and gaining some ground on July the 8th. So Royal Salute comes back at his next one and puts up his best speed fig on turf, if you're into speed figs, when it comes to grass races. And I think it was his best performance because that was a deep field. Kathmandu was a Jeff Runco horse up from Charlestown. Not a West Virginia bred, but a horse with some turf background at Laurel, and figured to be a handful for that field. And there were some other good ones in there too. And Royal Salute wasn't covered up and wasn't rating, no kind of a pocket trip, nothing like that. In fact, he was out on the chase way too early there, was Royal Salute. That was kind of the old Royal Salute. And he couldn't quite make that stick, ended up second to a horse that got a much better voyage, a ground-saving voyage, from a little bit further in arrears. Well-positioned was Kathmandu, but wasn't out chasing that leader Z Dancer the way Royal Salute was. Now, there was ample speed in this race, and I think Royal Salute is well served to be reunited with Oliveros, who knows this horse can win from 6 or 7 lengths back, and that's the strategy. If I were on Royal Salute tonight, that I would want to see. Another horse that exits that Kathmandu race, another one that has a shot in here, and like Royal Salute, ran back in just 5 days last time, which can knock a horse for a loop sometimes if they run back on short rest. I'm not one of these guys that says I hate a horse back on short rest, because to my experience, a lot of times if it's a sharp barn and they've got the horse on tilt, the horse will fire, sometimes big back on short rest, but it tends to knock them out for the first time on some occasions. And even if that was the case with these two horses, Royal Salute and West Hampton, their connections would have little choice but to enter them right back, because you got to get while the getting's good when you got a sharp horse and your turf race rules around in the book and the weather permits. Anyways, West Hampton, I liked him a lot when he won at 5-1. Made a good bet on him on June the 23rd because he was in a lot of trouble the time before when he was second to the aforementioned Bosley, a really good grass horse out of that Cluley barn. And West Hampton just mauled that field. However, the place horse was in some trouble, or else he was going to be really close to West Hampton there on June the 23rd. And the place horse came back to tank a couple of times as the favorite. And I'm thinking that doesn't flatter West Hampton at all. So I hated him by the time he came back in the next condition on July the 8th. Another 12-5 claimer. Keep in mind, this is an allowance. And West Hampton complied with my lowered expectations for him and just didn't run real well. Made the hero move and couldn't sustain it. But then it all goes out the window last time when West Hampton, you got to pull up the video on this. You got to see this to believe it. As he has a fight with a gate, breaks like a drunken sailor, ducks inward, and spots this field many, many lengths. I was shocked when I looked up, turning it for home, and here comes West Hampton making a pretty resolute move. He was much the best there, was West Hampton. I wonder if he's the kind of horse you can trust, though. For one thing, that's not the only occasion that he has hit the gate or done something silly at the start, so you can't count on a good beginning from him. And I don't think, in all fairness, that his 3-12-5 claimers on the turf, they're quite match up with what Royal Salute can do in here. So West Hampton a shot. And before you discard him, keep in mind that with his at least sit way back down the backstretch style, although he's kind of a turn mover, he's going to get his song played up top here with a lot of speed. I don't think the speeds are much of a threat here either, given that they're plentiful here, and a couple of them don't look too stout in the end game. So West Hampton, to be well back down the backstretch, could be a tactical advantage. And you got to upgrade this horse based on what he did last time, whatever his history prior to that was. So I'm going to keep talking here while I go over and somebody remarks, love the rider switch on West Hampton. Yeah, Montserrat is, in my opinion, almost a glorified gallop boy. Yeah, Negron's definitely an upgrade. Well, the Negron's really aggressive too. I'd prefer to see somebody who sits chilly and makes the one run. Maybe somebody whose style is a little bit more suitable for turf. John Namath, my man in the house, had just hit the like button. Thank you, my friend. Thank you, my good friend. So it is 4 minutes to post right now. We're going to look at the top horse here, Mitochondria. Got to keep an eye on Anthony Stephen, ex-jockey who means business when he runs at Mountain. Man, he wins a lot of races, allowances, and maiden special weights and stuff like that. Has been in something of a slump. To be 0 for 4 on the season in Mountaineer is unusual for him. So he's really due is Anthony Stephen. And look at his overall record on the season. He's 10 for 30, a 333 hitter elsewhere. Mitochondria is really well bred by Medallo d'Oro out of Foxy Danshore. And he's got a full sister who I think ran in the Kentucky Oaks and won a graded stakes or two. Mitochondria, not the same kind of horse. He performs best when he's kept away from the majors. You can see that by the failed field trip to Churchill Downs. He got disgraced there at 53 to 1, but on this kind of a circuit, he's consistent. Turns out good numbers and can be tactical or can sit back and play the patient game too. You got to wonder about the grass for him though, because Medallo d'Oros can run on turf, but they're probably better on dirt, better known for their dirt accomplishments. And Foxy Danshore, this horse has got, I think, 3 or 4 sibs to get to the races, and they have like 2 turf wins amongst them. So it's not out of the question that this horse could be okay on grass, but I wouldn't assume that that's going to be the case. You do have some proven turfers in here too, and he's taken support also. At 5 to 2, there is Mitochondria. After Sunrise used a potent pro rail bias. In my opinion, that's how the track played on May the 24th. So that race was never for real from After Sunrise. I can't see him at all on turf going 2 turns here, but he's definitely a speed factor with hard sending Barrios up. But this can help set the table for somebody to come from behind. And the main contenders here do have somewhat relaxed styles. Royal Salute, at least the way that Oliveros rides him. And Mitochondria can get relaxed as well. Parker, old head at the wheel. And then West Hampton is going to drop back early also. A game maker, don't like him at all. Cheap speed. May add some fuel to the front end fire. And Publicity, number 5, is 10 to 1 up there. Publicity was always too low in the morning line at 7 to 2 after what was kind of a bogus win at an Arabian Clip. So they kind of handed that to him. And it wasn't a fast race in any regard, their Publicity. Plus, he is no better than third from 9 tries on the turf. So I don't think the surface is going to do him any favor here either. This outfit's got a horse in later on tonight. It looks a little bit interesting. And then we come on the bottom to Z Dancer. Z Dancer, not a good lifetime record, just 2 for 28. But Z Dancer ran big and any other than maybe a higher spot than this on May the 19th. And that winner was razor sharp, faster, and went to, I think, Prescott and won smartly. Z Dancer comes back and holds his own at a very competitive race there that I talked about and kind of characterized that Kathmandu field as deep. Z Dancer took some token pressure from Royal Salute, which I think hurt Royal Salute more than it did Z Dancer. And he's got more to deal with in here. And the likes of some of these cheap speeds, like After Sunrise and possibly Game Maker, and put Publicity into the mix there, who show some pretty consistent speed also on the grass. So I don't see the pace holding on here. And I think Z Dancer's way overbet in 7 to 5, given the probable race shape, I would say. How many of you guys remember those old turf horses that I was talking about? Back when the place was self-contained, called Waterford, and an island unto itself. And the same turf horses came back every year, year after year after year, to scarf up and clean up on the turf purses. A fewer of which were carded back then too, by the way. It was almost kind of a novelty thing, kind of a sideline thing. And you'd always get some wise guy in the crowd that would cash would take it on some $30 horse and say, yeah, I was at Fort Erie 3 years ago and saw this horse had won 3 small stakes on turf. And there's no freaking way I can know that, because DRF didn't even list, and this is unbelievable, turf records at the time. So I think this is between Royal Salute and West Hampton. And it might hinge on which of these horses springs back with more energy after returning last time to run well, the both of them on just 5 days rest. Not a tough exacta to come by, guys. The race played out pretty much the way I expected it to. Sea Dancer compromised by the breakaway cheap speed of After Sunrise. So he was no real threat to beat the two that beat him, Royal Salute and West Hampton, who both ran huge on July the 13th. There, West Hampton broke a lot better than last time, but still is tagged by Royal Salute. A well-timed Royal Salute there. And I mentioned going in that West Hampton is not the kind of horse to sit back patiently and make one run. Nor is Negron. Even though he's an upgrade on Montserrat, he's not really a patient, clever, sit, save horse and find a seam. A turf-style jockey. I don't know if the move was premature or not to circle around him with a hero bid, but that is kind of the way Negron rolls. And maybe West Hampton just wasn't good enough to beat, again, a well-rated, well-timed Royal Salute there. As that plan went according to the way it was drawn up there. Exacta pace, I think, with 22, 23 bucks or something like that. But both those horses ran back on short rest last time, Royal Salute and West Hampton. And Royal Salute has now got a couple of wins at a couple of seconds since being purchased privately from down at Gulfstream Park. Mitochondria didn't seem to like the grass a whole lot. I was a little leery of him flipping over to turf when I noticed that he's got a full sibling, a full sister who's a graded stakes winner on dirt that ran numerous times, and Team Asmussen never saw fit to try one time on the turf, which I think told us something. Who's your favorite turf horse, guys? Best turf horse I ever saw was John Henry. During my tenure in Southern California, went to Santa Anita. I think 1980, December 26th, had to park like 2 towns away and walk to the freaking races. And got there for the 4th, and John Henry won the Oak Tree Invitational. And out came the horse named Spence Bay. Pull up the video. It will give you chills. And I still get chills when I remember John Henry, as I was fortunate enough to see the great, immortal John Henry not only win, but exhibit the quality which made him John Henry, his heart, his incredible heart. It was eerie to watch. And when he came back after a dead brave win at really short odds with Shoemaker up, just to kind of add to the mystique there, they cheered him until the mountains, those faraway mountains, shook. Second race, 1 mile on the turf. This is an open 75 for fillies and mares. I see where Photo Finish is running back on short rest here, back in just 5 days. Photo Finish was already entered for this when she went to the post there on July the 21st. And now she wins that. That was an easy race to close in because the speed collapsed. There was a lot of weak speed. And it was a wide closer's track, so they were really playing her song out there on the class drop, which is why she was 2-1. I think the question becomes, how is this race going to play out up front? That's not so easy to predict. It might be in favor of Photo Finish. And keep in mind that she may have rallied last time going 6 furlongs, but was within striking distance of a very rapid pace there. So her speed's intact. And when she goes 2 turns, she's a speed horse, is Photo Finish. Now, she is 0 for 3 on the grass. And keep in mind, if this were a dirt race, I would not even entertain the possibility for Photo Finish, who had everything her way last time in the guise of cheap dirt closer. Going long again, she's a speed. And although she's 0 for 3 on turf, her turf race, her placing on the turf at Monmouth back in August, it pales the surrounding dirt form there. It's almost like she wanted the grass when she got over on the turf and ran that well at 13-1 to lose by just a length and a quarter there. Her other 2 grass races, one of them I think was some kind of a stakes race early in her career, Photo Finish, who might be okay on the grass. A very difficult read. Off some dirt form, even a win that would not carry the day here. Number 6, Photo Finish. Dichotomy, who's one of the all-time classics on the grass at Mountain Air with her 8 for 13 record. She was in against the boys going 5/8 last time. She's not going to beat the boys at 5/8 at this stage of her game. She's 10 years old. Turf horses have more longevity. You guys know that than their dirt counterparts. And if that was a design tune-up, then look out for Dichotomy. Dichotomy was still good enough to win a grass race last year and win it handily. I think her fate depends on just how easily Palcar can go up and enlist and be close to the pace, and how little horse he might have to use here on Dichotomy. But it's impossible to say since she was not a Dichotomy like last season. It was okay, her year, but it wasn't what she'd been capable of in the past. There, the 16-time winner of almost $250,000 there. So it's not easy to tell what she's got left in the tank. And although I can excuse her most recent race, it doesn't exactly serve as a ringing endorsement that she's going to be dead ready to go out there and get a mile on the lawn. So it just depends on how much is left in the tank there with her. Number 3, Ipanema Princess. Let me check the odds here before I out myself. Yeah, she's 5-2. And I think I've got her on a banner, one of my banners. Yeah, puzzling morning line prices. Ipanema Princess. I meant to say the second race. I put the first race by accident. 3-1. I said she'll actually be lower than that 3-1 Ipanema Princess, and I'm going to stick to that. Maybe not a lot lower because she's not taking a lot of early money, but there could be a tote correction coming. She's pretty obvious for favoritism, Ipanema Princess. Back form, ancient Roman history, counts more on turf, and she's a turf winner at Gulfstream Park and also at Del Mar, and broke maiden in her native Ireland, the Ipanema Princess. And she used to be a closer, believe it or not, but she's kind of morphed over into a speed, and not a speed that exactly looks sound and improving. Ipanema Princess. Let me see where they're at coming onto the track here. Yeah, they're coming towards the track. Ipanema Princess was claimed for $25,000, and man, did she tank. So they got the booby prize, and she just has not lifted a hoof in anger ever since. But she did get some time off and then tuned up last time over synthetics. Now, Matika tends to run fit horses first time back, so I hope that she is sound enough to improve on that return effort there. And she likes synthetics okay, but she's going to find it easier sledding here, and her best footing is turf. Ipanema Princess. Is that the greatest supermarket song of all time? When I was looking at the form this morning, I pulled it up on my Google Nest, which is on the desk upstairs, the computer that my wife and I use. Little Bear doesn't get on computer a whole lot. He just plays with his phone. And anyways, yeah, it kind of put me in the mood, so I pulled up the greatest summertime supermarket music song ever, The Girl from Ipanema. It is so relaxing. We'll just put you in such a good vibe, and you picture yourself on a beach with a cold beverage in your hand and a soft breeze rolling in off the sea. The Girl from Ipanema. On the negative side of the ledger, when it comes to Ipanema Princess, who is now 2-1, I checked out Pavel Matika, and he's 30. We got conflicting stats here. We got dueling statistics on Formulator. Matika is like 34% at Mountaineer. That's incredible. So he's a force. Remember when he took both halves of the front double, and they were both made in special weight races on turf with respective first-time starters? Who does that? Who's ever done that at Mountaineer? But anyways, the downside there is I checked him out when he's got the horses in the drop, 50% in claiming price, which Ipanema Princess does here after running last time for the 13,000 down to 75 here. So drops more than 50%. This guy's like only like 1 for 28 or something like that. So doesn't exactly focus on sending out live class droppers. So I'd keep that in mind before I bet the ranch on Ipanema Princess. 7-1 on High Vibes, who's a 5-time winner on turf and has got a race under her belt. Had a poor post last time. Just didn't run much, though, and has been sold in between those last 2 races. High Vibes. Number 8, Super Honey Timber is 5-2. They're all over Honey, and she's got 1 turf placing. I think that was a maiden race from 2 tries on the turf, and she's won 2 in a row now. Tough to route with just 6 furlongs worth of regulation activity under your belt, which she did there on May the 31st, came back to win at a route. And then I loved her last time, Super Honey Timber. And here she came at 8-1 on June 29th. That was the mother of all setups, though, for a good wide closer. When Romantic Jewel is out there on the engine, then she is putty in the hands or the hooves of any closer. So when all you got to do is jog by Romantic Jewel, you haven't proven a lot or established a lot about two-turn aptitude. Or I should say about the ability to win back on a considerable class like up from 3,200 and also flip your game over to turf. So maybe all the pieces are there if you want to cobble them together with that turf placing and the route win a couple of starts back, and she's in good form. If this were a standard issue, a veteran turf race, in other words, a little deeper and a little more replete with current form than this looks to be, then I would not entertain the notion. As it is, I'm not in any big hurry to take 3-1 on her, but I don't think she'd be completely out of the question, you know? Terry Crago here. One of my favorite trainers sends out CC's Hart, who was a three-time turf winner, but boy, you can't prove it by what we've seen from her here at Mountaineer. Now she was in a lot tougher with New Age Batgirl just 11 days ago, so she should be closer than 8 1/4 lengths to the winner here. But on June 7th, there should have been closing some ground because that's a superior winner, but a superior winner who went out there and just dogged Science Fiction Splits, and who was getting tired in the late stages. And the whole field was closing in. CC's Hart was not, so just haven't seen much from her. She would have to made it some kind of a form reversal. And it's tough to tell if she is going to return to the guise of closer because she sure didn't look at it like it last time when she weakened in the lane, or even if the setup's going to be there up top because a little tough to determine how fast they're going to be going up front. You know that Photo Finish is going to try for the lead, probably get it. Dichotomy wants to be alert out there on the stretch out from 5'8". She's a pace-oriented horse, and Ipanema Princess used to rally. But her last couple of good races, and you got to strain your eyes to find them, have been right out on the leader thereabouts, and she is only 2-1 up there. And the one thing that might stop me from taking favorite odds on Ipanema Princess is Pablo Matika's, and again, the dueling stats. He's got this incredible record at Mountaineer, which would normally override any other trainer consideration, except his Achilles heel is with sharp droppers. And I don't mean in sharp form. I mean horses that drop sharply. He's got this woeful record. So I'm a little confused. And I'm not sure I feel a wager coming on, guys. So a patient ride really paid off there in a grass race that went out in 46 and came home in 51. Really set up for that first time turf winner there, whose mama was a grass horse. Not much turf on the top side of that pedigree. I do think that horse just kind of no napping fell into the right spot at the right time because dichotomy ain't dichotomy anymore and was going at too quick a clip out there in the engine. Was a little tough to decipher the pace, but they were going too hard out there. And I also mentioned my big reservation about Ipanema Princess, who actually ran better than looked because she was on the chase the entire way. They wanted the lead badly. When she gets fronted, then they're right back after a dichotomy on the engine, so that depleted her. But I mentioned big red flag. This outfit just does not drop horses when they have any juice left in the lemon, like 1 for 28 with horses. I was amazed at this stat that dropped 50% or more in claiming price out of that Pavel Matika barn. Other than that, he's 34% at Mountaineer, so we had conflicting stats there. I guess we just saw which stat carried the day, but I think a patient ride and a horse that just kind of fell into the right spot at the right time in a meltdown race. I think that's the story of that win from no napping. I'm really happy down here in my finished basement where I have my studio because it was getting a little bit grungy. And I cleaned it yesterday. Really proud of myself. Had other things I wanted to do. Little Bear was working. His mom was sleeping because she works night turn as an RN. And I came down here, baby, and I cleaned and I cleaned and I cleaned. And it's a much happier environment now. For you horror movie fans, if you're familiar with 1408, a really good horror movie based on the short story by Stephen King about the haunted hotel room and the dolphin, the ancient classic Dolphin Hotel in New York. John Cusack plays the protagonist in the movie. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. But anyways, and I'll get into this some night on the show if you want, or maybe even do a video about it. This basement is so freaking haunted that Bear and I simply refer to it as 1408. So when we're going to come downstairs to watch a movie, because we have a theater section, a home theater section, in fact, 2 of them in my finished basement, and we have a well-appointed bar. I hope you guys can visit sometime and see this. But whatever the case, whenever we plan to journey down here to watch some television or play some air hockey on the other side, the dark side of the basement, or just hang out or whatever, I'm coming down to do this show. We'll never say headed for the basement. We'll say going down to 1408 because it is that freaking haunted. But anyway, so I cleaned 1408 yesterday. It took me a couple hours to do it, and I'm really happy with myself. Looking around that, our first time in a while, I see my basement completely clean and spiffy. So Jacob Bellis says, pull up the video of the first Arlington Million. I know that was the classic, the quintessential John Henry win. When he nosed the Bart, and I guess it looked like a dead heat, or maybe even the Bart had won it. So they moved that statue to Saratoga, I guess, huh? Somebody else opined that Frankel, in their opinion, is the best turf horse ever. Was he better than Milreath, you think? I can remember when I was a kid just kind of getting interested in racing, and Brigadier Gerard was the big European turf horse. And back then it was the Arc de Triomphe, man. The Arc de Triomphe was next to the Kentucky Derby, maybe the most prestigious horse race in the world. Oh, it's haunted down here. We'll tell you guys some stories sometime. So we have 3 more turf races coming up, and I was correct about the closing price point, by the way, and my puzzling morning line price points when I listed second race Ipanema Princess. And I see some of you guys love that song as much as I do. 3-1 when I typed in will be lower, 6-5 was the closing price on Ipanema Princess there. So 1 mile, and you guys know that I did the morning line officially at Mountaineer for 30 plus years. I think I added it up one time, like 40,000 races, and I have extensive theories on how to do a morning line too. So 1 mile on the turf, maiden claimer, 25,000. This race fills fairly frequently at Mountaineer. Fillies and mares here. Not a good field, but you wouldn't expect it. You're talking about filly and mare claimers so on the turf. Sperry Chalet was second on this layout, going 7/8 on June the 16th, and Sperry Chalet might have the controlling speed here. The horse that beat Sperry, though, on June the 16th was a first-time starter, and not a stylish one either, I don't think. The Beyer didn't come back that big, but could carry the day here. A big knock, obviously, on this horse would be the trainer, who was competent last year. but this season just can't seem to hit the broadside of a barn, 1 for 27. So that's a big knock. Sperry Chalet comes back, and having been second in her only turf outing, she's probably better on grass, but she has had several dirt placings. So last time, set a really soft pace and still succumbed to a fellow speed. Horse named Fifth Gear. I wasn't real impressed with the outing from her, but getting back over to turf and making her an easy leader, and that could be in the works for her here when you look at this lineup. And I wouldn't assume that you can't win in front tonight on turf because the first couple of races were not going to be wired the way they played out. Not at all. Those set up for patient rallies, and that's what carried the day in both races. I listed 2 price points in this race that I think are misconceived. I think Cantor is going to be lower than that 10-1 on the line. I think Pivot to the Power is certainly going to be lower than 5-1. Pivot to the Power, I guess, might be the favorite here. Pivot to the Power is 0 for 18. This is interesting. Pivot was on the turf last time when in good form from Mountaineer. Went second in a maiden special weight race on the turf. Now, it wasn't any dynamic maiden allowance race, but it was better than these. And the winner of that Xenocat was a Marshall Godsey trainee, and his horses are good, who had some cred, who I think went off as a favorite. And Pivot tries to parlay that form over to Belterra and drops down in class and doesn't run a jump. Well, they're thinking the hood was the reason because they added blinkers to Pivot to the Power there off that second place finish, and it really backfired. I don't know if I'd blame the hood for that desultory effort from Pivot to the Power. I think she might be common and maybe a horse that you just can't count on, because if she is favored tonight, and she's probably going to be, then you can't trust her because the last 2 times she's been chalked, she was 1-2 on each occasion and settled for second both times, Pivot to the Power. Now, if you want to play the cherry picking game and just isolate her best races on the turf, then she's the one you want here. Been second, I think, a couple of times at Tampa on the lawn, Pivot to the Power for sure. So it just depends on how you look at this. I don't trust her enough to take some silly short price, I can tell you that. But she has been a better turf horse than Sperry Chalet. And they're getting warmed up at 0 to post. We still have a little bit of time. Electric King was bought at auction $4,500 before coming to Mountaineer, and was in with Bailey's Girl, got an inside trip and never made a dent in that first time starter Bailey's Girl. And she was a favorite to Electric King, and then flips over to dirt. And I'm thinking, how slow can she be? She's got to get a piece of this. She didn't run jump once, so I know she's got some grass placings at Indy, bigger tracks. Maybe needed the turf return there June 16th. Maybe hates the dirt that badly, but I'm not sure that I want to connect all those dots and stampede to the windows to wager on her. And I'm right about Cantora, because Cantora is way down from that 10-1 program price point, and in fact is 7-2. She's interesting because her second career outing, first time at a route, was big purse, maiden special, fairgrounds on the lawn, and ran respectably to be in the hunt at the pre-stretch and lose by just 7 lengths with a buyer that would crush this field. But after that, she's away like 10 months and runs 3 times, and she's off again. And you guys know the drill. Usually these outfits try to have them ready for first time back on the turf, though, because you can get rained out in 3 successive times at the entry box, and maybe your race doesn't pop around again in the book for a month or so. So these outfits will try to have them ready, and they might be showing confidence in Cantora to send her a full mile there. Cantora, I'm thinking she's way better on turf based on that one grass race, and plus synthetics, which is turf adjacent. She ran a 62 speed fig and was third at Gulfstream in career, so I think she's a dirt hater. Cantora, she may well be. And I looked up Greg Vian's about 3 years worth of history and found a couple of occasions where he had horses off like 3 months, 4 months, even 5 months, and they would emerge victorious. So it's not like this layup is all that long that Cantora can't be fit, or that it would be completely against the trainer's MO. I know he's showing 0 for 10 when horses are off roughly this time frame, but I don't think that tells the whole story with a Greg Vian's. I'm not crazy about the price either at 7-2 up there. A Crafty Lawyer is 5-1 contending price off that third place finish on June the 16th. She'd been third in debut on dirt, though, so public's thinking she's got a big chance, and a really lousy off-turf race on July the 19th, and she ran backwards like she wasn't even a thoroughbred there, Crafty Lawyer. So I'm not real bullish on her either, to be really honest about it. So if you see Sperry Chalet out there on a soft lead and you like her one turf try, then by all means, be my guest. I think it's more likely that one of the more talented fillies, and I'm talking about Cantora or Pivot to the Power, decides to fire and beats her. So after the clunker last time on a field trip to Belterra, they took the one-time hood experiment off, pivot to the power, and pivot to the power gets up. I won't say gamely, not a 19th start maiden winner. I think the theory was they wanted to pivot to the power to look around and see who he had to beat. But when you're 0 for 18, I'm not sure it's a good thing if you see the opposition, because you're probably going to be quivering in your boots when you do. But pivot to the power gets up. Not a talented horse. Seemed to have a lot of momentum around the far turn. And then all of a sudden, Oliveras is really shoving on this horse with about a quarter mile to go. So it wasn't looking so good for the home team. And indeed, Crafty Lawyer did move up, way back up on the flip over to turf there. I think the difference is horses that were behind Bailey's Girl there, Sperry Chalet and Crafty Lawyer, just weren't in with a real tough winner. That first time starter, Bailey's Girl. Cantora got pounded all the way down to 2-1, even as pivot to the power was 3-2. So it was correct on both of my puzzling morning line price points there. What in the world was that guy doing on Cantora? Just straight up in the tack, skiing on the horse's mouth into the first turn, ran up somebody's heels. Not that Cantora was ready or was going to be much of a factor anyways, but the guy looked scared to death out there on the turf, the jockey on Cantora. My man, the jammer, Jerry Jam Gotchian, who's going to creep on in here into the dungeon one of these nights. He's promised me. Wins with pivot to the power. Loves him a turf running mare. That's his favorite thing in life, Jerry Jam Gotchian. When I was an official at Mountaineer, assistant racing secretary, Jerry came to me with this proposal, this intricate proposal to start carting some kind of cheap stakes races that could be black type for fillies. I think his idea was to get them sponsored or something like that. It was self-serving, but it was kind of inspired. Jerry's an idea guy, you know, and I know it wasn't going to fly, but I kind of humored him because I dig Jerry a lot. And again, he's an idea guy. Fourth race, 7 furlongs on the turf. And don't forget this evening we had not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5. Count them, 5 turf races, which leaves us little time to try and determine if last week's anti-rail bias is in play again tonight. And that has been the trend on the Mountain Main. And we have a scarcity of furlongs on dirt tonight. One of the 3 dirt races, non-turf races carded, is a 440. And then another one's a 5H. That 5H race, I think, could be interesting from a wagering standpoint as the finale there. So the 4th race is Never Twos. This is a $10,000 claimer going 1 lap around the grass, 7/8. Mr. Business tried to go a mile last time and gets tagged in deep stretch there. Did Mr. Business. Shortens up to 7/8. Now, a lot of times when a horse with the front running style gets the lead and falters just a little bit, it gets tagged at a longer distance and goes shorter the next time. The horse encounters more in the way of opposing speed, but that's not the case here. It looks like Mr. Business might go out there and take care of business and control his own fate out there in the engine. I was a little disappointed in his race there last time. I liked him a lot, and I bet him fairly heavily, Mr. Business. He succumbed to a stablemate named Hot Wings, who really didn't show much turf, and who I didn't think was a lot of horse. And it's almost like the jockey on Hot Wings bent over backwards to allow Mr. Business to set a somewhat pedestrian set of fractions out there, Mr. Business. But if you look back at his Tampa turf races, then this should be a fait accompli. He should not lose this. You can see where he's up there gunning on the lead a couple of times, head and head for the lead and wins with a 74 Byron turf at Tampa. A couple of times later, he's a competitive 4th. And what about on March the 25th? I pulled up the video on that, and he's wide on the first turn. And his speed fix still stays afloat as he beats 6 in a big field, and he's taken out of his front-running style there, Mr. Business. So I'm thinking he's not supposed to lose on July the 8th. Now, maybe the screws weren't down completely tight. That was his first start in 3 months, and off-bench winners aren't exactly a Jaybird specialty. But a big plus that comes into play here on Mr. Business. Whereas Bernardini, I don't really trust the form stats that say he wins fairly often with comebackers because that's never been his MO, as far as I remember. But also, they don't bounce second time out for Jaybird. It seems like they don't experience the dreaded bounce, and this is bounce territory for Mr. Business after that grueling race. First time back off the sidelines. Mr. Business, who drops a little bit in class here and looks like much the one to beat. And did I list him on my misconceived price points? Yeah, I was right about Cantora. 10-1 was 2-1, and Pivot to the Power 5-1 morning line, who ended up at 3-2. And then I skipped over this race. Probably should have specified that Mr. Business is going to be lower than 2-1. Although sometimes, to be honest about it, that amounts to nitpicking when you knock the program price point on a favorite, because it's not always so easy to designate them as low as you know they're going to go off at. Because if you miss on the low side with a morning line favorite, you kind of get egg on your face as an odds maker. And when you go crazy low on some of these horses, the points just don't work on some of the other horses. So it's a little nitpicky to draw attention to a morning line price point on a probable favorite that is listed as a favorite in the program, but who you think is going to go off lower. I'm looking around for some speed to go out and challenge Mr. Business. And I wonder, King Clouston's got a duo in here. And how many of these horses have shown speed before or stretch out for this? The stretch outs / former speed showers are number 2, number 3, number 4 has shown speed. Number 6, number 7 was close up last up at a snappy 5/8. Number 9, Starship Dior used to get the lead. And Fernando's Gold stretches out and has got some speed. So is Clouston going to gun one of these horses out there to compromise Mr. Business? These guys read the same form that you and I do. You would think Aussie would be rated back, though, because his win was from mid-pack, and it seems like he runs better like that. And when he was gun last, if it didn't work, it backfired. Although he probably wasn't ready. The Stansberry trained horses were needing a race or two during that time frame in mid-June, so it could be a lot fitter. And he's had more than a month to tighten the screws down on this horse. I would expect a change of tactics there. Fernando's Gold, I think, has deteriorated. It is not a turf bred, but he's capable of some speed. Starship Dioro exits a fairly fast-paced race, and who knows? Might be the sacrificial lamb to go out there and try to spite the favorite who's 4-5 up there with a front-running style, Mr. Business. You know who I think could benefit and get a piece of this? Number 8, Ghost Prince. I would use on my verticals here, definitely. Ghost Prince, for one thing, is one of the few horses in here who's never shown speed tendencies. And this jockey, this is a husband-wife team, and this jockey's big thing is to blow up the tote board from off the pace, usually about twice a year, when you just least see it coming. Ghost Prince is coming off synthetics. I know he's okay on synthetics and tanked the last couple of starts, but he's probably better on turf and did win from off the pace on turf. Now, the win wasn't impressive. It was a cheap 75 maiden claimer at Belterra. But if you want to look at some ancient Roman history and pull up his next turf race, he was a competitive fourth and an A other than optional claimer, not an ever 2. Ghost Prince. So I can make some kind of a case for this horse to run half decent here at 15-1. Change of hands angle in play too, although that's not usually a potent angle when you're talking about this outfit, because they're 0-20 when they send out a new acquisition. But he kind of intrigues me for a piece of this. Number 8, Ghost Prince. And 3-5 on number 6, Mr. Business. I wonder who's going to draw the short straw in the jocks room and go out there and attempt to hound Mr. Business and keep Tapar from slowing the pace down. There's a look at my finished basement, guys, that I broadcast from, which this little camera, which is a DocuCam, the one I point at my logo, the two mean horses with my dungeon logo, really doesn't do justice to. I'm really proud of this basement because we weren't going to have a basement, and then decided to and busted my ass to make sure there was a basement in our new house, and busted my bank account to have a nicely finished basement there with 77-inch TV, a couple of luxury recliners, and then a beautiful bar down at the far end. And I'm really proud of the basement. And I'm at the far end here in my studio, guys. Just thought I might give you a little look there of what's going on where I broadcast from. So it was kind of ominous that Mr. Business didn't take care of business last time, and a really soft lead. And the horse that beat him, I've never been real high on Hot Wings. So that was kind of a black mark. And I mentioned that there was more opposing speed in this race, which could have been a danger, Will Robinson, danger omen for Mr. Business. And even thought maybe one of the Cloustons, one of the Eddies, they would try to resurrect one of their speeds to go out there and hound. Favored Mr. Business. Even mentioned that you can bet Clouston's bringing the same set of past performances that we do. And it looked like the 7 was a sacrificial lamb to go out there and hound Mr. Business off that sharp 5/8 return to the races that found him very alert. And Starship d'Oro, complete reversal of form. But you're seeing some of that with the horses back in Eddie's name after some other conditioners have kept the seat warm and been down in the program. So some of you guys nailed that. So my congratulations. If you came up with Starship d'Oro, the race flow, not real surprising to me, the way that it played out in terms of tactics and strategy, nor was I in any big hurry. I didn't bet the race. I wasn't going to take a short price on Mr. Business, so given the pace outlook, mainly, to be honest about it. My man Kenny says, I love dark flooring. Yeah, I do too. I wish I'd have gotten dark flooring upstairs, but I got this stuff that's kind of reddish and looks like a basketball court upstairs. Anyways, moving ahead, we have one more turf race, and this is 5 furlongs. And this is our first one-turn turf race of the night, right? 5/8, yeah. Never 2 for the ever popular 15,000 claiming price, which fills all the time. We used to fill this race frequently. When you attach it to a non-life condition, put it on the grass, they come a-running. I mean, not literally when the gate opens, but they come running to the entry box. Some puzzling scratches here. Kind of gutted this race of early speed. So there was that. So how about it? Draws in off the 11, who has been second a couple of times on turf and was second to a horse that didn't look all that great on June the 16th on paper, but came back sharp with fresh legs there on June the 16th. How about it? To beat How About It. And How About It? Ran pretty well, all things considered. The Beyer doesn't really match with what he is capable of on dirt. How About It? Put up a big number when able to get the lead on May the 11th, going 6 furlongs on dirt, and then got back to the 6 furlong dirt game last time out. That How About It? It was reclaimed at a $5,000 loss there, so they like How About It. And How About It last time out was moving wide around the turn, which was the place to be, then angled in as Anti-Ant-Man stayed out wide where the track was better. So it was about a push in terms of trips there. How About It? Wasn't really victimized and wasn't really favored or at any kind of an advantage on that wider biased track on July the 21st. And Jaybird's already won a race tonight with a horse back on short rest, Royal Salute. And was it the second race? So you want to keep that in mind. Or was it the opener? Yeah, it was the first race, I think. The Royal Salute wins. So How About It? Stock goes up a little bit, I think, when you scratch the main speeds out of here, the quick speeds. And could have some position out there. Could be very alert. How About It? Golden Cookie's another beneficiary of these scratches, I think. I don't know if this horse likes turf. Has been on it one time. Was maybe outclassed at Laurel back in October of 2024. Scant duty schedule since then. Golden Cookie. This barn's 0 for 4 in the year, but has been high percentage over the years and is really due. Synthetics is turf adjacent. I did an article to summarize the inaugural Prescal meet from a handicapping standpoint and found that horses with previous turf placings, when they ran on Tapeta, the newly minted Michael Dickinson stuff that he wanted to cover the whole world with. You could make a flat bet profit at that first meet if you just bet horses that had moneyed on turf previously. I used to be really good friends with Mad Genius Dickinson, and I think I kind of alienated him with some of my comments critical of synthetic surfaces. I don't like them. I just don't. And I fought to keep him out of Mountaineer too, by the way. Remember when they were going to cover the whole world, your house, your driveway, your yard, every racetrack known to man with that stuff, with the carpet fibers and Super Ball bits. Remember when they were going to do that for the better of the animal, for the safety of the horse? And then they found out that soft tissue injuries and hind end injuries popped up more often on synthetics than on dirt. But anyways, I digress. I keep coming back to Golden Cookie off that big synthetic race on May the 19th, and he's got some speed. Not that quick in the shorter sprints all the time, but opportunities here, given the scratches, for somebody like Golden Cookie to go out there and set the pace. And the previous trip to the town was a good one to the now undefeated Midnight Show, who would come back to win 2 more. It's now 4 for 4 career-wise for Marshall Godsey, the new Kosher Cowboys Midnight Show. So some stuff to like about Golden Cookie here. Some stuff to like about How About It on the outside. And then Juan Pablo is represented by a horse who has got a turf win. Roaring Rapids, kind of a tough read to weed through all of his grass efforts there at so many different distances at 0 to post. And he is actually even money Roaring Rapids. I think he may have had a better shot before some of these speeds scratched. At least I don't think he's even money. Given the grain of the turf course, the profile of 5/8 turf races at Mountaineer, it is not always that easy to come from very far behind. And he doesn't have speed at 5/8. Seems like Roaring Rapids hangs at any distance known to man, except when he doesn't. Now, I see a good 5/8 race when he keeps flying at the end at Sam Houston. Doesn't seem to like Lone Star. And that was one of his rare clunkers. They didn't like him at all at Lone Star on May the 2nd. And the next time he's coming at the end. And I think the winner of that was a William Morey horse, who didn't look, maybe, I'm trying to remember. I'm not sure I do remember there. But whatever the case, some of his buyers on turf look pretty good. And he's been second a couple of times at 5/8 with a late style at 5/8. Seems to hang at 2 turns sometimes, Roaring Rapids. But lost some of his setup with a couple of these late defections. I think his downfall, the seeds of his downfall, could be if somebody strong like Golden Cookie or How About It is able to get the lead or go out there and vie for the lead. And 8-1 on Blanton. Blanton broke maiden on dirt, but his turf numbers are way better. And when he nails the break, he can flash speed. You don't know if he's going to nail the break, though. He's had a tune-up, a design tune-up, I'm sure, at 2 furlongs there, with this race in mind, with a flip to turf and a more workable 5 furlong distance in mind, and off slowly and rushed up to be third, competitive third in allowance. And once made the lead at the 8th pole, going 4.5. So I bet you hear his name called a few times here. Number 6, Blanton. I don't see any surprises on the tote board. The odds obviously are reconfigured given the late scratches here. The horses who would have been speeds here and have defected. This is the Life, number 2, and My Balboa, the 4, and also Ticket to Paradise. That's 3 front runners subtracted from this lineup, and I can't believe they're going to throw any kind of an advantage. Those are pace scratches, and I can't believe they're going to help Roaring Rapids unless he's able to sit closer than you think at this 5 furlong distance. I can see a race or two where he's kept within striking distance, even in a short sprint like this. I can't take 2-1 on Golden Cookie, given the fact he's only been on grass once and it didn't work out so well. I suspect he's going to like the turf just fine, Golden Cookie. But then again, seems like he's tailed off his last couple of starts, and a once powerful barn is kind of down in the doldrums. I am not feeling a wager on this race, guys. Just because the race confuses me a little bit doesn't mean I won't scan the board and try to find somebody who's mispriced, somebody who I think is overlaid. But in this race, I don't think that the primary contenders, the three horses that I dwelled on, Roaring Rapids, Golden Cookie, How About It, the 11. I don't think you can point to any of those horses who are all 9-5 and say, yeah, this is the one that's underbid. This is the one, baby, that should be 4-5. I don't think so. I just don't. Hey, good luck to you guys. My man Kenny Neely just texted me on the down low and jogged my memory on something. It's the third winner last week or two that ran 2 furlongs last time and moved back out the standard racing distance. When I say there's no life after the 440, I mean when horses run the 440 defensively as a specialist that can't run longer or because they've performed so woefully in longer sprints. This wasn't that. This was kind of a cleverly designed prep for Blanton. And I took pains to point out before the race that they definitely did not think he was a 2 furlong horse on dirt. No, 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 no. They had this race circled in the condition book, and this served as a good sharpener. Beyond that, I just kept pounding and pounding the point home that the lead was available to somebody, given those speed scratches. This race was won for Blanton at some point this afternoon, given those three speed defections. And amongst the possible get the lead candidates there, and I really boiled that down to two, Blanton and Golden Cookie. Blanton was the one that had showed some turf aptitude, not Golden Cookie. So that's not a surprise. It sure wasn't a surprise to the CAWs because what a tote correction as Blanton ends up at 3-1 there. Does Blanton. Harry Pease was the guy in the trainer's position. Gotta love a guy in cargo shorts and colored socks. That man means business. That man is doing work. You know what? Harry works hard on his horses and has developed a grass horse or two. Kind of an acid tongue, kind of a smart ass, Harry Pease, but I always liked him. I always liked Harry Pease. And take a bow there, Harry, because your plan worked out perfectly with Blanton. But you did catch a break with that trio of speed scratches this afternoon in that race, I think. Thanks for the compliments on my digs, guys. You're all invited to visit if you can get here or live anywhere in the area. You know what I did? I don't have any secrets from you guys. I really don't, at least not too many. And I was raised in mobile homes and apartments and stuff like that. And it's always been my dream to provide a real house, a beautiful house for my son, Little Bear, that he can live in and always have. And I depleted my savings. I saved for years and then paid cash for everything in this house. I went and bought an acre and a half and had a beautiful home that's like, I think, a little bit more than 2,200 square feet constructed on it. And it's very eye-catching, too, from the outside. I've got shrubbery and a lot of beautiful stuff outside and a huge shed and a garden and stuff. And it completely wrecked my fucking finances. But I don't regret a minute of it because now I have something to pass down to my son and there is no mortgage. Thanks, guys. And now we come to the 440. And this is kind of on their signature race. You know what? We always wanted to believe it was West Virginia Derby. But I think once we got past Huntress Helena and moved on to Phone My Posse again and Cutting Edge Tech, I think that the 440s became what Mountaineer is best known for. These races have been kind of democratized since I was one of the driving forces behind them when we designed them as star-making vehicles, name your own claiming price, and they would all the way up to like 35,000 and stuff. And these horses would carry like 139 pounds and stuff like that because you would weight them according to the claiming price or any price starters. The idea was that they could run these monsters in the 440 and not risk getting them claimed. And the horsemen came along and said, and they had a few points in their favor on this. We're sick and tired of watching Kevin Patterson carry all the money back to Southern West Virginia. How about lowering the ante here a little bit and writing some 4,000, $7,500 claimers at 2 furlongs so we can win them too without encountering these monsters. Consequently, the public favorites no longer win 95% of the time in these races. And you don't have the stickouts, at least not normally, although at least ostensibly there is a stick out here in this $7,500 filly and mare claimer at 2 furlongs. And that is number 5, Determined Love, who, believe it or not, I think has only been beaten once at the 440. And don't go by the racing form at the distance feature because they mix 2 furlong and 4.5 furlong races together, not just the 2 furlong jobs. And Determined Love, I think, was like 8 for 8 at the 440 when meeting her Waterloo first time off the claim on May 31st. And rare is the horse that Treehorn can't keep in a holding pattern or even improve out of the claim box, baby. But he came back to rectify that with a Determined Love win. Now, her bugaboo, her thing, and you got to watch the start at the 440 like a hawk because it's prerequisite to victory to break straight and quickly. And Determined Love broke outward, and I think was fortunate to have the wide post in victory on April the 19th and also May the 10th. Now, didn't break outward too sharply on July the 12th. And if she doesn't get crossed over on, and I don't think Dolce Veloce is going to do that, or Salty Mama, if she gets a clean trip, once she hits top speed, she's too fast for these horses. Too fast for an agent. Can she scoot? And can she scoot stock and trade in these 440s? And she's the poster girl for these races. I always thought the Chain Space, who I like personally, should have come over to the racing office and given us big white kisses for carding these races that Can She Scoot could compete in, because what else was he going to do with her when she got to the point about 5 years ago when she couldn't even run 4.5 furlongs anymore? And so she found a second career, and kind of a lucrative one at that. But whatever the case, her stock and trade is to get the jump on horses that have a faster top speed than she does once they get up to speed halfway up the home stretch in these races. And she can't even do that anymore. She's only been on top at the first call mid-stretch in one of her last 4 at 2 furlongs. So if she can't put this race to bed quickly, then the race isn't going to bed for her. Can she scoot? Now, Miss Knuckles has won plenty of these things. And she was in with the boys in 2 of her last 3 and 3 of her last 4. Some pretty quick boys, where you add Vince and Cash Customer. In fact, I was just a little bit disappointed with her return to her own gender last time at 5-2, because I'm thinking from the 3 post, if she doesn't get crossed over on, and that's always the issue with her, Miss Knuckles, and she is able to preserve her path and hold service down in the 3 post. Once she hits top speed, she's going to be a force. But her top speed was really not much to behold on July the 12th, which leads me to believe, although she's got a chance here, Miss Knuckles, because I don't think either of her primary tormentors are quick enough to cross over on her in here. So she's going to have her path open. But clearly, these days, Determined Love has a higher top speed than does Miss Knuckles, who's kind of a funky mover. If you watch Miss Knuckles in action, guys, runs with a strange low-headed plodding style for a 440 speed merchant. Miss Knuckles. Always suspected she's got some serious issues back at the barn. Maybe that's just the way that she moves, Miss Knuckles, who is almost certainly going to be the second favorite here, even as Determined Love, who I listed as one of my misconceived price points on my morning line feature, is going to be lower than 8-5. Guaranteed she's going to be lower than 8-5. Coastalness is running a bunch of these things, and she can't keep up with these horses at the 440. Sarah Stanachek likes to run up at the 440. Her private buys, which I think she picks up for peanuts. Dolce Veloce, 21 and change a few times at Charlestown. To a first call that incorporates some turn, but did not flash any of that speed for Ronnie Brown. And Melinda Sanders picks him up, I think, pretty cheap. Salty Mama, she's only been on top at first call one time, and that was in a maiden 75. So not exactly a threat at a 440 distance. Determined Love, much the one to beat. And the price is 4-5 right now. I'd be surprised if she doesn't go lower. Maybe considerably lower. And I'm going to check and see if the bridge jumpers are out here on her.